How's it going, everybody? In this video I'm going to be taking a look here at the Sony A95L, and this is going to be not a review, but a kind of an early impressions review, because there's some quite a few issues that need to be ironed out, and I'm sure they will be soon with new firmware. So I'm going to talk about some of those issues. It also, obviously at this point, most people know that overall the TV is great, but there definitely are some things that need to be ironed out. The main concern that I'll be addressing throughout this video is with Dolby Vision. With SDR and HDR10, there's not too much going on. The out-of-the-box white point is a little bit off, as expected with Sony, but that's very easy to correct, and once you do so, the SDR and HDR10 are pretty much fantastic. Color accuracy is great across the board. There's still a little bit of a lift in the near black range, or shadow details are just a little bit too bright, but again, easy to fix. Going through the settings here, you can see it's pretty much just all out of the box right now in professional mode in HDR10. The new way the advanced menu is set up is a great improvement, and basically with these just minor adjustments here for 2-point, for SDR and HDR, everything pretty much falls into place. The main problems lie with Dolby Vision, and even Dolby Vision Dark with the tone mapping set to off like it should be. Greatly overtracks the UTF. Setting it to gradation preferred helps, and doing some other things kind of helps, but no matter what, the bottom end near black in Dolby Vision is really bad. You can see here some very significant issues in the grayscale at the bottom end. This also affects the colors at the bottom end as well. You can see here with red, green, and blue on the dynamic range low pattern using the Spears and Munzel disc. Alright, I'm also going to show the scene from 1917 that I like to use here as well. And if you look closely at the bottom around his head, you can see where the black is actually kind of like greenish, and it's basically floating and fluctuating. In person, it's actually much more noticeable than what the camera can pick up. Another issue with Dolby Vision is when loading some Dolby Vision content. Well, one, you can see this green flickering screen whenever it should be black and it's triggering Dolby. That happens. But also you can see right now the motion is basically broken. So whenever I go to launch something in Dolby Vision, a lot of the times the TV is just not playing it correctly. It looks very, very choppy, lots of dropped frames, just very stuttery, basically unwatchable. Now, to fix it, I just go back to the menu, reload it, and then I have to do that various times. Sometimes it's just a couple, sometimes it can be 5 or more. And then again, if we compare with HDR10, we can see we're not getting all the shadow detail in the dark areas with the Dolby Vision. You also see a lot of tinting and banding and just general really poor performance in dark scenes with Dolby Vision. So while I'm sure this will be fixed in a firmware update at some point, currently I would recommend disabling Dolby Vision and just using HDR10. If you are using built-in apps, can't really do that. But if you have an external device, most of them allow you to do that, or there's some kind of workarounds you can figure out. So like for my personal setup, I have a receiver, and I can disable Dolby Vision through the receiver. That way I don't have to worry about any of my devices sending Dolby Vision while it's like this. Now, I've only had this for a few days at this point, so I haven't had time for extensive reviewing, but I want to get this video out here about the Dolby Vision, just so you know that at least for now, you probably want to avoid it where possible. As far as gaming performance, I haven't really got to do too much with that. I do know that you can turn off the tone mapping for a hard clip, and it will overtrack the EOTF by a bit. Turning gamma down to -2 when doing so gets it mostly okay, but I'll look further into that and see if that's a real viable option. If it is, it's basically the same thing as HGIG. I'll also be working on extensive dimming testing to see what causes the TV to dim, how much it will dim. So like when watching sports or playing games, if there's static elements on the screen, how much would that cause the TV to dim, and what's the best way to mitigate that? So there's plenty of content coming with A95L, I am still going to be buying one for my living room at 77 inches. Currently I'm reviewing the 65, and so being able to live with the TV long term will give me the ability to do a better long-term review with it after, let's say, 6 months or so. So if you aren't subscribed, subscribe, or keep an eye out for those videos in the future on the A95L. And I still have a backlog of other videos I need to catch up on too. So again, the TV looks fantastic with SDR and HDR. Very basic adjustment needed. I have very simple, straightforward, settings set up, and I'll have a video for settings here soon. The real main concern is with Dolby Vision. There's a couple other little bugs here and there, nothing as major. Another thing with Dolby Vision is the input lag is very, very, very high, 250 something milliseconds or more. So it's another concern if it's like I have all my devices going through my receiver to the TV, not using the eARC, because eARC goes the other way, so it would go from the TV to the receiver. So what's happening is you're hearing the sound and then later seeing the video on the TV. Now on the receiver, you can set a delay to match that. But if you set it for Dolby Vision at 200 and something whatever milliseconds, then you watch something in SDR HDR where it's not nearly as long, then it mismatches the audio. So it's another thing that you have to think about, and another reason to just disable the Dolby Vision for now. It really seems that there is some kind of major issue with the processing of Dolby Vision in this TV right now. It's actually quite surprising because on last year's A95K, it was fantastic with Dolby Vision. Didn't really have any issues like this, so don't know what happened other than possibly related to the new MediaTek chipset. Also, the tone mapping options in Dolby Vision, while you should not need them, at least in Dolby Dark, when you do try to use them, they don't really work. So you can use gradation preferred in Dolby Dark to lower, to make it track EOTF better. However, if you were to use, say, gradation preferred in bright, it won't actually take effect unless you toggle over to dark and then toggle back to Dolby Bright. Then it will just mimic Dolby Dark with gradation preferred. And then with brightness preferred, it doesn't seem to do anything at all in Dolby Vision. And some have said that they're able to get it to work with the Dolby Vision Vivid mode by toggling settings a certain way or toggling between the picture modes. But again, it's quite a mess. Before the current firmware, so the current firmware ends in 130.1. So before that, HDR10 had similar issues with tone mapping. So I'm thinking that when they released this firmware to fix HDR10, there was still issues here with Dolby Vision that weren't addressed yet. So that's why I do think this all can be fixed with firmware. Hopefully it doesn't take too long, and then we'll be able to get back to normal testing and reviewing. So if you were to ask me right now if you should still buy the TV or hold off, I would say I wouldn't let this affect your decision for the most part. While it's possible that Dolby Vision could continue to be broken and not get fixed, it's very, very unlikely. That would cause a major issue for Sony, and I don't see that happening. I see it getting fixed. The question is when. And also, the TV really is excellent in SDR and HDR10, so you really don't need the Dolby Vision part anyway. Kind of similar with the S95C from Samsung, and people who want to debate if they need Dolby or not, you really don't. The tone mapping in HDR10 is very good where it's needed, and very little content is it actually needed. With that said, however, it still is really nice to have Dolby Vision just to know that you're seeing the version of the content with all the detail that you should see present. That doesn't mean the HDR version wouldn't. It just means that you can have that ease of your mind knowing that you're seeing what you're supposed to be seeing. And as far as getting the TV calibrated, absolutely, I recommend getting it calibrated by someone with proper equipment to do a QD OLED. Again, while it is an easy fix for a calibrator, it still needs to be fixed, having that white point fixed. That's a really major thing for this, where without having the white point corrected, everything is too magenta, and it's very noticeable by an enthusiast who has a calibrated display would easily be able to pick it out. All right, I'm going to end it here and get back to further testing. There will be plenty more videos for the A95L and other videos coming soon. Hope to see you all then. Thank you all for watching, and I hope this helps.